Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. Of course, as always, I hope you're not sick of me yet. I am your host, Charles Hamaker, here with you. And if you are sick of me, keep those comments to yourselves. Had a week off, not exactly planned, just wasn't able to get the show recorded in time with how things have gone. Kind of had a nice reset break as well when you're covering 22 teams. Having some days off doesn't hurt, but, you know, we had a busy week for the teams on the road in Seattle here, and then we're going to have a big week upcoming for teams at home as the Mariners are back in town, the Rain are back in town, the Storm have a game at home, and the Sounders will be back as well. So we'll get directly into it with our Seahawks, who are getting they wrapped up their last few days of OTAs, so we'll get directly into that. Notes on June 3rd, again, as we're not credentialed with the Seahawks yet, we've got Bob Condotta from the Seattle Times who had some notes. Reminder that OTAs are voluntary, so players aren't necessarily required to be there, but wide receivers Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, D. Eskridge, Laviska Shenault, defensive linemen Draymond Jones and Cam Young were not present. Defensive lineman Buda Jones was also not there, but he may have had an injury suffered from the last week with OTAs going on. Linebacker Tyrell Dodson was present and did do some walkthrough stuff after not participating with the team during OTAs last week, but linebacker Jerome Baker was also not on the field. He continues to come back from surgery. Right tackle Abe Lucas and right guard Anthony Bradford are also not quite there yet. Continuing with the wide receivers, talking about folks who were there, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jake Bobo, and Derek Young were the usual top three wide receivers that Seattle was using. Aesop Winston got a lot of work with the second unit and appeared to have a strong day. And then the offensive line going from left to right as it was played was Charles Cross at the left tackle, Laken Tomlinson at left guard, Olu Oluwatimi at the center position, McClendon Curtis at right guard, and George Fant at the right tackle position. Defensive back Kobe Bryant was back and got a lot of work both in the nickel position and at the safety position, somewhere I believe that he got some work last year. Quarterback Sam Howell had his best day of OTAs at the time. He went 6 for 6 on some late 11-on-11 drills and the 2-minute drill. With the caveat that the DBs are limited in making plays on the ball. So limited sample size to take away from some things like this, but still somewhat notable to pick up some of these takeaways, see how they might play out over the course of the season, and, you know, see if they do end up mattering later on down the line. So we look at it here. There we go from that. We go to June 6th. The Seahawks did make a signing there. We're only at 2 quarterbacks for a good amount of time after not signing Tua Tagovailoa's brother. And they had, I believe, Siobhan Cardero did not get signed. So on the 6th, Seattle signed free agent quarterback P.J. Walker, providing some depth, a third quarterback. You know, I don't believe teams are required to have 3 quarterbacks, but usually teams will always have a third quarterback, sometimes putting them on the practice squad. P.J. Walker is an interesting story. He's been around football for a bit, whether it be in the NFL or out of the NFL, at least looking in the NFL. He spent his first 3 years of his career with the Carolina Panthers. Didn't get a lot of starts. 1 start in 2020, 1 start in 2021, and then he got 5 starts for the Panthers in 2022. He spent some time with the Browns in 2023. Only starting 2 games there. So, you know, limited sample size, has largely been a backup in his career, never really doing a bunch. He had his best arguable year in Carolina when he got those 5 starts, throwing for 731 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did throw 3 interceptions to that point. So, you know, again, not too much to really base off of. There, he did get sacked 7 times, so whether that be an indictment. And then in Cleveland, if you look at his time in Cleveland, in only 2 starts, he got sacked 11 times. So, yeah, I mean, there's not a lot that you can look at in his NFL time really has been a depth guy, and that's largely what this signing would be. The 29-year-old bounced around here. He is more known really for his time in the XFL, played with the Houston Roughnecks, where he led the XFL in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Spent some time with the Panthers there. Spent some time briefly with Chicago Bears last summer, and then eventually joined the Browns, where we talked about his time there. Again, this is largely going to be a depth signing. Could be getting in an extra arm, so to not really overwork the two quarterbacks that Seattle has on the roster, and as well as to just have some depth there. So not too much to take into account. We had OTAs, so that's we're in this phase 3 here. Now we got to wait a few days. Actually, starting tomorrow is when we go to mandatory minicamp from June 11th to June 13th to wrap up the offseason program. We've talked about this with you guys at the end of the Seahawks segment for the past, what feels like a few months. But yes, as a reminder, no live contact is permitted during this period, but 7-on-7, 9-on-7, and 11-on-11 team drills will all be allowed alongside individual and group drills. So wrapping it up with the Seahawks segment and moving over into the Mariners. The last week that we were off, the Mariners had a solid 7-game homestand. They take 3 of 4 games against the Houston Astros, including the first 3 of those games. So they were looking at the sweep, unable to get it. And then they take all 3 against the LA Angels or Anaheim Angels, however you want to refer to them. I'm fine with you calling them either way because they truthfully do play in Anaheim. But a 6-1 homestand is nothing to scoff about. You go on the road, and it's not so easy. The first 3 games of the road trip, you could consider more easy as you play the Oakland Athletics. They're not as historically bad as they were last year, but they're still not quite there in terms of being a competitor. The Mariners win opening night. Tight game, 4-3, probably tighter than it should have been. June 4th at the Athletics, a 4-3 win. Our player of the game, third baseman Josh Rojas. Rojas, 3 hits on the day, 1 run and 1 RBI. This would have been included in injury notes, but it is there's not been any roster move or real set terminology with it, so we'll keep it within this game. Relief pitcher Andres Munoz had to leave this game as he was in the 9th inning to try and close it out. There was an awkward sort of play at home plate. Andres had to bend over kind of funny to try and make the tag at home. They tried to have him throw a pitch afterwards to see if he could go, and it just didn't look right. We found out that Andres has been dealing with a lower back problem that he's been able to work through. He has been able to pitch through it, but it is something he's working through, and that awkward play at home plate did not really help with that. He was able to play later in the week and pitch well in the 1 inning of work that he had, but it is something that's going to be monitored and going to be a story, especially considering how many troubles that the Seattle bullpen has dealt with over the past few weeks. So there's that. June 5th at the Athletics, the Mariners drop a clunker in the middle of this one. Well, not a clunker, I guess you could say, but it was frustrating considering the offensive struggles. They lose 1-2. That one comes from our player of the game, center fielder Julio Rodriguez. 1 hit, 1 run, 1 RBI, and 1 walk in this one. It's a solo homer in the top of the 9th off of Oakland Athletics electric reliever Mason Miller. But the Mariners aren't able to do anything outside of that, and they lose this one and waste a relatively strong outing from Logan Gilbert. They go on to win the next game and win the series on the getaway game, June 6th at the Athletics by a score of 3-0. It's not a ton of offense, but it gets the job done. They win this one. Brian Wu pitches excellent in this one as he continues to work in quote-unquote limited work. Our player of the game, designated hitter Mitch Garver. Garver, 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 RBIs, and 2 walks, including a solo homer. So nice to see Garver kind of putting the pieces together after, the start to the season that nobody, whether it's him, the team, or the fans, have really wanted to see from the designated hitter. We go from that Athletics series to a much tougher opponent in the Kansas City Royals. I mean, we saw the Royals earlier this season. The Mariners were able to get the better of them in that one. But playing in Kansas City, if you're aware of it, if you've been a Mariners fan over the last few years, playing at Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City has provided its challenges and its wacky results, and it included some of those in this one. June 7th at the Royals, really frustrating loss. The Mariners lose by a score of 9-10. Our player of the game, first baseman Ty France, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 RBI, and 1 walk. This one's frustrating just considering that the Mariners had an 8-0 lead in the second inning. They score 7 runs in the first inning. It looks great. They go through the order. They hang 7 runs on, I believe the starter was not John Lynch. The young man's last name was Lynch. And then things cause some trouble. Bryce Miller gives up 4 runs, including a 3-run homer, and that's when things started to change. So really frustrating loss there. Regardless of how the bullpen pitched in this one, those 4 runs aren't great, and then the bullpen doesn't really help you out either. So that one's just an all-around ugly loss, and the Mariners have had some of those kinds of losses at Kauffman before. June 8th at the Royals, they lose this one as the Royals score 8 runs, and they lose the series because of it. Our player of the game, shortstop J.P. Crawford, 2 hits, 1 run, 2 RBIs, and a solo homer as the Mariners lose 4-8. Crawford started the game off with a leadoff home run, and you thought again, we're going to get some early offense, but just an ugly game on the other side of things, pitching-wise, and the Mariners drop that one. June 9th at the Royals, though, they do salvage a game and avoid being swept. They win in extra innings by a score of 6-5. This is another game the Mariners did have a few runs of a lead in this one late. Unfortunately, Mike Baumann gives up a 2-run homer to tie this game in the 9th. The Mariners do score 3 runs in the top of the 10th. Austin Voth does give up a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 10th, but they do close things out. Taylor Saucedo records the save in this one. Our player of the game, starting pitcher George Kirby, 7 innings pitched, 5 hits allowed, 1 earned run against, no walks, 4 strikeouts as Kirby pitches an excellent game for the Mariners in this one. Our player of the week, as we'll go directly into it, is shortstop J.P. Crawford. I could have gone with Mitch Garver. His numbers have been pretty solid over the past week of games, including he's been catching George Kirby as of lately to try and help him get back into the flow of things, help his bat out a little bit. The transition to designated hitter hasn't been as easy as you're just, once you go down and you record an out as a designated hitter, you don't have to go out and play in the field and help take your mind off of it. So that looks like it might be helping him a little bit. JP, over the past 7 games, though, 8 hits, 4 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 2 walks, a .296 batting average, a .345 on-base percentage, a .593 slugging percentage, and a .938 OPS. JP as the head of the snake for this Mariners lineup at the leadoff spot, just providing the sort of impact that we saw from 2023 JP Crawford. We'll talk briefly about this past week in games. I mean, there's not a lot to look at. I mean, frustrated. It's got kind of the same stories with the offense, but the offense has been able to pick you up a little bit. You look at the Athletics game, 4 runs is fine. 1 run in the game 2 is not. 3 runs is you need more, I'd say. 9 again to lead 8-0 in that game against the Royals in the season opener, a series opener. That should be more than enough. There's the frustration there. 4-8 pitching kind of gives you some struggles there, and then winning in extra innings. The offense did enough in this one, so the offense is kind of picking up their load a little bit more often than not here. Some struggles there pitching-wise. You really need some of your higher leverage arms back, and hopefully get Gabe Spire back sooner rather than later. You're still looking at the July timetable for Gregory Santos, and we will hear more by the time you're watching this later in the day from Mariners general manager Justin Hollander in terms of injury updates, as he provides injury updates at the start of every homestand. So we'll get maybe some more stuff. Santos did throw off the mound in Oakland, so there's that to look at. But, yeah, you really can't rely on Andres Munoz as much, and hopefully you're able to use some of your other relievers in high leverage, or you just play well enough to where you don't need to use guys in high leverage situations. So it's fine, but you want to get better from it. The Royals series are always tough on the road. You have a chance to bank some wins here over the next few weeks. So we'll look into team and injury-related news. I'm kind of starting to morph the team and injury news together because so often the moves made are corresponding. So we'll see how that goes, see how you guys feel about that. On June 3rd, Monday, June 3rd, outfielder Jonathan Clase was optioned to AAA Tacoma. That was a move made post-game from June 2nd. There was no corresponding move the same day, so everybody was like, what's going on? June 4th, though, we find out rumored that Victor Robles would be signed by the Mariners after he had been released by the Nationals. It was made official on the 4th. Victor Robles will wear number 10, last worn by Jared Kelenic. The Mariners signed him to a major league contract and added him to the active roster. As a result, infielder Luis Urias was outrighted to AAA Tacoma, which I believe takes him off of the 40-man roster. So Urias down in AAA Tacoma. The move initially made to send him down there was primarily made to help him get his bat going, and now he'll be able to spend more time down there doing that. The Mariners have to do that to get Robles on the roster. And Robles, just to touch on him quickly, has made some plays. I mean, he did have an impact with a few hits during the Royals series. He had a kind of an ugly dropped ball in the outfield and left field against Oakland, but not too much to go off of as he kind of gets integrated with his new team. June 9th, a bunch of roster moves on Sunday as there was an injury. So we'll get to it. Tyler Locklear, an infielder, was selected from AAA Tacoma. He'll wear the number 27. He did make his big league debut against the Royals on the 9th. He had a big RBI late in this game, RBI double, I believe it was, to score and help give the Mariners the lead. So nice to see him get involved early. He's largely been regarded as the future at the first base position for the Mariners. So kind of interested to see how he will do in his time at the big league level. Also selected from AAA Tacoma was right-handed pitcher Matt Bowman. He will wear the number 59 as the Mariners continue to kind of play all sorts of games to get different relievers up. Infielder Ty France was placed on the 10-day IL, retroactive to June 8th, as he's dealing with a right heel fracture, so not great there. He was initially in the lineup, I believe it was on the 8th, yes, and then he was scratched right before first pitch, and Luke Raley played first base for that game. Continuing with roster moves on the 9th, right-handed pitcher Colin Snyder was optioned to AAA Tacoma. Having to make moves to add these guys to the roster, the Mariners designated 2 right-handers for assignment. Levi Stout was designated for assignment, and Eduardo Salazar, who the Mariners claimed off of waivers a few weeks ago, was designated for assignment. Looking ahead here, the Mariners sit at a 37-win, 30-loss record. They continue to remain in first place in the AL West, ahead of Texas. We'll get these official numbers for you here, so I'm not just spouting words at you. But the Mariners will have a big opportunity to add to their lead atop the AL West division with the next series that they'll play, and then they'll face the Rangers later on, who they are leading in the division. So yes, the Mariners sit atop the AL West at 37-30. The next place is the Rangers, 31-34. They're just one game ahead of the Astros at 30-36. The Mariners are 5 games ahead of the Rangers, and the Mariners will play the Rangers at this upcoming weekend. So we'll get to it, though, and we'll talk about this upcoming week. June 10th versus the White Sox later today is a 6:40 p.m. first pitch. So to begin a 4-game series against the White Sox have been one of the worst teams in baseball. That's not me being mean. It's just being truthful. All 4 of these games are 6:40 p.m. first pitch times, which is a little bit odd. June 10th, 6:40 p.m., June 11th, 6:40 p.m., June 12th, 6:40 p.m., and June 13th, 6:40 p.m. Then on the weekend, the Mariners will play a 3-game series on the weekend against the Texas Rangers, who, as I mentioned, are sitting right behind them in the division. And if you're able to help make some more distance between yourselves and the folks who are behind you in the division. It will only help you later on down the road. So really big opportunity for the Mariners to be able to do so. June 14th, Friday versus the Rangers is a 7:10 p.m. start. That's 70s fireworks night. This game, I believe, is on Apple TV, actually, so you're going to want to keep an eye on that for folks who either don't have Apple TV or will need to be able to watch that on television. This is an Apple TV Plus game, and it is 70s fireworks night after that game. June 15th, Saturday versus the Rangers is a 4:15 p.m. start. It's African American Heritage Day, a Juneteenth celebration at the ballpark. This game is on Fox. So be aware of that. There's a promotion for this one as well that we'll talk about, as we'll also talk about the general promotions that are happening over the next homestand. It's just a celebration. Okay. June 16th versus the Rangers Sunday to wrap up the series is a 1:10 start. It's Father's Day and it's Big Tumper Seat Cushion Day. From there, we'll move into the homestand highlights for this upcoming week with the Mariners and talk about some different things that are happening around the ballpark so fans can be aware of it. If you're coming. So Bark in the Park night, Monday. So June 10th on Monday, it's a Bark in the Park night. Fans can join a game with their furry best friend Monday evening. The first 1,000 dogs into the ballpark will receive a dog bandana. $2 of every dog pack sold will benefit Positive Alliance. You can buy these tickets up till noon on Monday, so by the time you're watching this, you cannot buy those. It's also a Mariners value game. You can get into the ballpark for as low as $10. It also includes the Mariners value menu, including things like chocolate chip cookies and churros, ranging from $2.50 to $4. Tuesday, June 11th versus the White Sox is also another Mariners value game. In addition, we have some special nights going on. It's Northwest Parkinson's Foundation Night. You can support the fight against Parkinson's disease with a special $25 ticket offer in the main level. $5 of every ticket will benefit the Northwest Parkinson's Foundation in its mission to transform the way people live with Parkinson's through awareness, education, advocacy, and care. The deadline to purchase tickets is Monday, June 10th at 5 o'clock. So if you're watching this, by the time you'll need to get those tickets quick. I mean, by the time the Mariners segment's happening, you'll have like 40 minutes. So buy those tickets there. It's also Special Olympics Washington night. Support Special Olympics Washington in partnership with Virginia Mason Franciscan Health with specially priced tickets to the main level and view level. $5 of every ticket sold will through the ticket special will benefit Special Olympics Washington. Cassandra Sandgren, Special Olympics Washington athlete, will be throwing out the pregame partner first pitch. Fans who purchase a ticket through the special will receive a Virginia Mason Franciscan Health Mariners-themed T-shirt. Same deadline, 5 p.m. Monday to buy that ticket. It's also Italian Heritage Night. You can celebrate Italian heritage with friends and family at the ballpark through this ticket special. Fans can pick up an exclusive Mariners-themed Italian Heritage T-shirt. $1 of every ticket sold will benefit Fest Italiana. Same 5 o'clock deadline. This is also a peanut-controlled game. Enjoy the ball game in a peanut-free section. Tickets start at $10 in a designated peanut-free section. The deadline, again, 5 o'clock. Eric Johnson of Como TV will be throwing out the ceremonial first pitch that day. Wednesday, June 12th versus the White Sox is Star Wars night. Fans can enjoy the game from a galaxy far, far away through this special themed ticket event. An exclusive Mariners-themed Dark Side button-up shirt will be available to pick up. Deadline is Tuesday, June 11th at 5 o'clock to purchase that ticket. Another Mariners value game there. June 13th to wrap up the White Sox series. June 13th. Yes, to wrap up that White Sox series. One of the big things is Buhner Buzz Night. Buzz it all off or come without it. Fans who show up to the game bald will receive a free view-level ticket and a Buhner Buzz t-shirt presented by the Muckleshoot Casino Resort. The Buzz Shop at Victory Hall will shave heads prior to the game in exchange for a free ticket and a limited edition t-shirt with Jay Buhner on deck for some of the haircuts to celebrate the 30th anniversary of this iconic promotion that did make national news. Tickets and t-shirts will while supplies last at Victory Hall. There's also a Pride Month t-shirt available. Celebrate Pride Month with a limited edition Mariners-themed t-shirt through this exclusive offer in recognizing communities of love and inclusivity. Deadline to buy that ticket is June 12th at 5 o'clock. This is also another Mariners value game. Then we get to the weekend series against the Rangers. As I mentioned, it is 70 Themes Fireworks Night. All fans are welcomed to stay after the game for a fireworks show with chart-topping songs from the 70s as presented by T-Mobile. This is also Mental Health Awareness Night. Join us in supporting mental health awareness with this ticket special. You can pick up a Mariners-themed t-shirt presented by Hom Seattle, a Seattle-based company that donates its proceeds to mental health organizations, as created by Race Porter, friend of CSS and former University of Washington punter, also punted in the XFL. $5 of every ticket package will also benefit the National Alliance on Mental Health. Deadline to purchase those tickets is Thursday, June 13th at 5 o'clock. It's also Ride Transit Month Rider Celebration Night. $10 of every ticket sold will benefit Transportation Choices Coalition to provide more transportation choices in Washington. Same deadline of 5 o'clock on Thursday. It's also Cheers Seattle Night. Support the LGBTQIA plus community with Cheer Seattle, an adult nonprofit cheerleading organization. $10 to $17 of every ticket will benefit Cheer and the Lavender Rights Project, a Black trans-led organization providing critical services and advocacy work for marginalized groups in the community. Same 5 o'clock deadline on Thursday. Ceremonial first pitch for this one will be defensive tackle Byron Murphy and the entirety of the Seahawks draft class from this past draft. We continue rolling here. Saturday, June 15th, is African American Heritage Day. You can join the celebration with the contributions by the African American community to the Pacific Northwest, as well as the game of baseball. $3 of every ticket sold will benefit the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle in providing economic, educational, and employment services. Deadline to buy those tickets is June 14th at 5 o'clock. It's Faith and Family Day. You can enjoy a post-game concert in celebration of faith with family, friends, and fellow community members. Same 5 o'clock deadline. And then ceremonial first pitch will be Mariners broadcaster Dave Sims, as well as national anthem and Lift Every Voice and Sing will be Brittany Davis. All right. In addition to that, we'll wrap it up Sunday, June 16th, to close out the homestand and close out that series against the Texas Rangers. It is Father's Day. The first 10,000 dads, 21 or plus years old, will receive a big dumper seat cushion provided by the Muckleshoot Casino Resort. A few other things here. It's Baby Gender Reveal Day. Expectant parents will take the field after the game and take a swing to reveal the gender of their soon-to-be-born child. Expectant parents will receive a Mariners onesie for their baby, courtesy of Virginia Mason Franciscan Health. Families and friends will be on hand to watch and celebrate the occasion. It's also Croatian Heritage Day. Celebrate Croatian heritage with a day at the ballpark in a divisional matchup. Fans can pick up a limited edition Croatian Heritage Mariners themed hat when they purchase a ticket through the special offer. Deadline for those is June 14th at 5 o'clock. A few other things here. It's Mariners Refuse to Abuse Day. The Mariners are raising awareness to prevent domestic violence and promote health and respect for relationships in partnership with Washington State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. $18 of every ticket sold will benefit WSCADV. Fans will be able to pick up a Mariners-themed Refuse to Abuse dry fit t-shirt, same 5 o'clock deadline for those on Friday. It's also Youth Softball and Fast Pitch Day. All kids 14 years or younger will receive a Julio Rodriguez poster after the game. The ceremonial first pitch will be from some Mariners players' kids, which will be very fun there.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, how about those M's?
Oh, I'm excited.
I know. Where are you going to watch all those away games, though?
Away games? Huh. I was thinking of coming here since, after all, Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports.
I love that idea. Hope to see y'all here.
So that'll wrap it up for homestand highlights. We throw it over here into our Seattle Storm segment. We've got 3 games to look over, and we'll be able to bring in Circling Seattle Sports Storm beat writer Christian Braswell. So we'll get into the results of the games here, beginning at home. June 4th versus the Phoenix Mercury. This actually begins 5 straight games where the Storm are playing in the Commissioner's Cup. The Commissioner's Cup, if you're not aware, is an in-season tournament in the WNBA that began back in 2021. The Storm actually won that inaugural Commissioner's Cup, and that trophy now sits in the Seattle Storm Center for Basketball Performance. We'll educate you on the Commissioner's Cup. The Commissioner's Cup, presented by Coinbase, is an annual in-season competition. The team from each conference with the top record in Commissioner's Cup games, there's 5 this year as opposed to 10 previously, will compete for a $500,000 prize pool in the championship game, presented by Coinbase, which will be played on Tuesday, June 25th, at the arena of the team with the best record in Cup play. That will be the New York Liberty this year. Coinbase has committed an additional $120,000 in cryptocurrency to the prize pool, which includes $5,000 for each player in the championship game. The Commissioner's Cup provides added incentive and increased interest for players and fans alike, with a $500,000 prize pool on the line for players and enhanced conference rivalries through which fans can support their favorite teams. The Commissioner's Cup will continue to feature a platform through which the league makes charitable contributions to nonprofit organizations aligned to the players' social justice work. The accumulating donation dollars will be presented to each organization at the conclusion of the Commissioner's Cup. So, let's see if it's on here. Yes. The organization that the Storm will be supporting, as I'll bring it up here for you. I apologize. I should have had this more prepared here, but we'll get to it with that. So the Commissioner's Cup, the Storm, for every Commissioner's Cup win, the Storm will donate $3,000 to Pro-Choice Washington and $1,000 for every loss. Pro-Choice Washington is an independent reproductive freedom advocacy organization within Washington State. The Storm believe every person deserves complete reproduction and bodily autonomy. So there is that. To begin Commissioner's Cup play, the Storm would win over the Phoenix Mercury, who were without Brittany Griner and Beck Allen, by a score of 80-62. Our player of the game is center Ezzy Magbagor. Ezzy, 21 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. Seattle able to dominate this one through the first half. They do see an offensive lull in the second half, but they are able to get some big contributions on the defensive end to help continue that lead over Phoenix and get the win in game 1 of 5 in Commissioner's Cup play. Going on the road for their first matchup against a team that seemingly is the favorite to win the league every year, as they've won the last 2 titles, the Las Vegas Aces, June 7th on the road against Vegas at Michelob Ultra Arena. The Storm win by a score of 78-65. Our player of the game once again is center Ezzy Magbagor. 14 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks for the Australian. As the Storm, win a game against the Aces where, there were ebbs and flows through it, but the Storm did look like the better team, and they were able to take this first matchup against the Aces. After the game, the MVP favorite right now and Aces forward Asia Wilson said, "That's a damn super team over there," in regards to the Storm. To wrap up the week, on Sunday, June 9th, also on the road, 3rd game of Commissioner's Cup play, the Storm would lose to the Minnesota Lynx. 3rd time this season, 2nd time on the road, by a score of 64-83. Our player of the game, guard Jewel Lloyd, 25 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal. The Storm do see a nice uptick. They have a lead going into the half, but the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter just not great for Seattle. They can't do much offensively. There's some questionable stuff officiating-wise, and they lose this one. Our player of the week is guard Jewel Lloyd. Over the past 3 games, Lloyd, 21 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, and 2/3 of a steal per game over those past 3 games. On the availability reports, before we throw it over to myself and Christian to talk about the past week in games, The games on the road against Vegas and Minnesota, both clean, but against the Mercury on June 3rd, the Storm without forward Nneka Ogwumike as she was dealing with an eye injury. She was a late addition to the injury report. As just a few hours before tip-off, we found out that she was unavailable officially. I found out at shoot-around she had been poked in the eye in the practice the day before that game against the Mercury. She thought, hey, I'll sleep it off. It'll be fine tomorrow. When she woke up, it had gotten worse, so she didn't participate in shoot-around. She was not able to go in that game, but she has been able to play in the past 2 games since. So we'll throw it over to myself and Christian to talk about this past weekend game. So welcome, Christian. This is his second time on CSS on Converge, this time a little bit higher quality than he would have liked from his first time on the show. All right. Oh, God. I always forget it does that. Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports. This is going into the Storm segment of CSS on Converge. I'm glad. I'm sure it's a little bit better this time, Christian, than the last time we had you join the show. We do what we can, but glad to actually have it to where I can talk to you on this one. We're going to do our sort of look back in review to this one for the past week, June 3rd through June 9th for our Seattle Storm. 3 games, 1 at home, 2 on the road, as all 3 of them are in Commissioner's Cup play to begin that. We'll just look through it. The game on Tuesday the 4th, you host Phoenix. Phoenix without BG, without Beck Allen, and even with, and it's saying a lot, even with BG, I feel like the Storm are able to take that one if that comes to it. Not to discredit Brittany Griner, of course, but still, just with the way Phoenix has been, it's tough. Seattle wins that one 80-62. They go on the road to play the Aces in a big matchup, just given how often Seattle and Las Vegas have kind of thrown haymakers at each other over the last few years when the teams are competitive, of course. Seattle wins this one by 13, 78-65, gets a big win on the road. Then just a few hours ago from when we're recording this, well, no, an hour. Yeah, sure. The Storm fall to the Lynx by a score of 64-83. Tough one. But like Christian and I have talked about on camera and off camera, not the end of the world, and we're not ringing alarm bells. What stuck out to you, from this past weekend games that's largely positive if you're looking at overall? Just what have you been seeing, whether it be with the core 4 and Ezzy Magbagor, Skylar Diggins-Smith, Jewel Lloyd, Nneka Ogwumike, or even maybe some of the bench contributions as well? What have you seen from this Storm team as they go 2-1 over the past week and have a 2-1 record in Commissioner's Cup play as well?
Yeah, Charles, thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be back. But there are just so many players and skill sets on this team that really make it who they are. And like we said on and off camera, start the season 0-2 to the Minnesota Lynx. And it felt like there was a rush of uncertainty around this team. Not from anyone in local media per se, but mostly mainstream and a lot of people that are kind of new to the W space as far as coverage. Not really understanding that this team is coming off a 9-27 season last year. Trying to integrate 2 new players, Skylar Diggins-Smith and Nneka Ogwumike, adding that to a team that already has Jewel Lloyd and Ezzy McGregor. It's going to take time. But what we saw from this last week, they really need time. They're the same as that team we thought they could be, and the talent showed. And it really starts with Skylar Diggins-Smith. She's come alive over the last 5 games. But this week alone, she's been one of the bigger reasons why they won that Vegas game and the Phoenix game. But just this week in general, it's been a lot of eye-opening moments for me, especially up and down the roster. Like I said, Skylar, Jewel's getting in her spots. She's taking great shots. Ezzy McGregor is the marshal of the defense, as everyone puts it in Seattle. She has now 12 straight games of at least 2 blocks. And then she has 7 straight games. Of those 11 games, 7 of those straight, she has 3+ blocks. So it was pretty amazing streak just to watch that in general. But to see it continue the way that she's been playing, listen, Scott Dick-Smith said it best at I think it was the Mercury win on Friday. Was it Friday? Friday. No, Aces were Friday. Anyways,
Tuesday.
after the Mercury game, Scotty Diggins-Smith said that, basically, Ezzy should be your D-boy candidate. And right now, I mean, outside of Asia Wilson playing out of her mind, but when does Asia Wilson not play out of her mind? I mean, let's keep it buck. Ezzy's right there as far as D-boy candidates. It'll start the season, but if you've watched any Storm games, you watch how much she is basically Mr. Clean at the rim. She's erasing everything. And if you grew up like I did, you had a lot of magic key phrases. As Charles points to his head. If you grew up like I did, you had a lot of magic erasers in the house. And that's pretty much Ezzy every time she gets on the floor. Mercedes Russell coming off the bench, Sammy Wickham and Jordan Horson have been godsends as far as wing players who can come in and guard really 1 through 3 efficiently. Sammy Wickham or her shot making. We can see a lot of it tonight in the Aces game. I wanted to ask Coach, how's she doing? Anything going on with that? But I felt like that was, not really that big a deal because she ended up playing, I think, 4 or 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. I can't remember. But yeah, she played. So basically, she's fine. But other than that, yeah, this team is just loaded all the way up and down. Victoria Vivian's, a lot of people had questions on why she's starting. I never did. For one, I'm not a professional as far as a basketball coach. I'm not going to second guess a coach. I'm going to assume they know more than me because they have a job where coaching a professional basketball team. So the fact that Noe has Victoria Vivian starting as long as she has, from what I've seen, I understand why. She brings a shot making ability as a veteran. She can guard 1 to 3 efficient, just like most other players on this team. And also, she just has that veteran presence that a lot of teams kind of wish they had. And they have a couple players that bring that, but Victoria Vivian and what she brings to our lineup is irreplaceable, in my opinion. A lot of people have argued for Jordan Horson to be slot back in there, and I can understand why, but I feel like once again we're only 11 games into the season. Jordan is coming off of shoulder surgery, so I think that's another thing we need to just err on the side of caution. But from what I have seen from Jordan herself, man, just a Swiss Army knife. She's everywhere. Rebounds, offensive rebounds, steals, playing the passing lanes, deflections. I mean, I know she's not scoring a lot, but she's doing literally everything else in the court. And she's doing it at a high level. And you see in her second year, only her second year, coach has a level of trust in her. There's a lot of games that I've watched this season. So far, this they're in the fourth quarter in the closing lineup. Those minutes make a lot. They mean a lot, especially this for a team that wants to compete for a championship. That's gonna matter. But yeah, I've said a lot about these players on this team, man. They're just so talented, and from what we've seen over the last week, really this 6-game win streak that was just snapped. Yeah, great basketball, man.
And I really like that you mentioned kind of the 3 position for this Storm team, if we're gonna call it that, right? Because this is something that I've talked. I think I've talked about it. I've asked Coach about it because that I don't know why in my little brain that it stuck so much. But the quote from Coach Quinn on Media Day about how she trusts Victoria Vivians to be in that starting lineup and essentially not need the ball. She's going to trust her to go play defense. But specifically why I wanted to talk about that and add on to what you're saying there is the day before the Aces game, Seattle had a practice and then they flew out to Vegas right after it in the morning, early afternoon. I apologize. I asked Coach Quinn about that because, it is something that people are wondering about, especially as Jordan Horson will have these games where she's very efficient in her minutes, can cause havoc defensively, and continues to really elevate her game. I think we talked about on our roundtable for the month of May about if she's able to, or that might have been something else, but if she's able to add that 3-pointer, she's really going to be a big player and a big contributor to this team going forward. And that's to that point, I see Jordan working on that 3 after practice every single time I go down there. So it's the work is being put in. They'll fall at some point, I'm sure. You just got to find them. I think you talked about it with Skylar. You got to see that shot fall, and then you'll get that confidence. And that's been a big thing with Jordan, is building confidence, whether it was last year with her game, building confidence throughout the course of the year, and as well as just offensively, like some of the looks she would get last year. she put herself in great position, but I don't think she had that confidence. It would hurt her, whether it's finishing or just taking the shots that she should be taking. Anyway, getting to what I asked Coach Quinn about, I further asked her about it. I was like, hey, like folks have asked you about it. Folks are wondering about your small forwards. What gives you that confidence to keep putting Victoria in the starting lineup and then having Jordan come out off the bench? And it was just what they both bring. They like that dynamic. They like what Victoria can do defensively, how she's a very smart player. Coach Quinn has said that. I spoke to Victoria for a piece I'm wanting to do. And she says, I have a very smart basketball IQ. And she said it very pointedly. I was like, I'm not going to disagree with you. Right. What do you want me to say that to a pro basketball player? Like my highlights were I played power forward when I was in like middle school and then I stopped. Like I'm not about to lecture nobody. We're not going to have a Skip Bayless moment where they pull up my less than 1 point per game in high school. Right.
That never gets old, by the way.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I'm not about to be that guy that they like pull up the receipts on. I'll just get that out of the way now. But that's so it's defensively, it's her IQ, it's not having to worry about her getting the ball or not. And something that Coach Quinn is looking for and trying to get out of Victoria is that three ball. If she can start hitting that three ball more effectively, that'll be dangerous. With Jordan, like they're very comfortable with what she's been working on, whether it's the three and just continuing her game overall. Like you said, she had that shoulder surgery in the off season, and it's amazing that she played a lot of the last part of the season with a banged up shoulder. Like if I look at the photos from last year, you can see she's got this big wrap on her shoulder. Whether it's the defensive play, just kind of being the Energizer Bunny off the bench, they're very happy with that. They're more than happy with that. And I think I said maybe after that practice, I was like, well, leave it alone. Like I realistically can see this happening throughout the majority of the season, unless something really switches. But yeah, so I really wanted to stick on that point that you brought up because I think it was important and it stuck to that moment that I heard from Coach Quinn. So yeah, I mean, you look at it just these past 3 games, you're happy with it, with what Ezzy's bringing, and that was a thing that I'll have talked about on the show, but we'll touch on here as well. Ezzy's extension for 1 more year. There's 2000 that 25-26 offseason will be hell just because of how free agency will be. And I don't know if it's fully confirmed or what, but I've talked to a few folks about it, how I think salary cap might get affected and money there. Also,
Yep.
that'll be a whole mess, right? Like that off season, it'll
Ain't
be
no
very
TV deal
interesting.
money, man. Everybody getting paid.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to get paid you want to be respected, in terms of the money. So it's a very far away time from now, but it'll be very interesting to see how the 2026 Storm roster looks, but we're far from that. So that took place. We had a little bit of a scare before this Phoenix game because Nneka Ogwumike could not play as she got poked in the eye the practice before, woke up, didn't feel good, felt that it got worse, as I was told at shoot around, and they felt I wasn't worried about it personally when I heard about it, Christian, and why I was like, let me handle this. I'll get this out of the way. Because it's like, one, if Phoenix had BG, yeah, I'd be, sure, absolutely. But considering how small ball Phoenix has been to a good point and to a fault, especially with Ezzy on the court, and we saw that early on when she was able to kind of punch Phoenix in the mouth. I wasn't worried about it, and especially given if it was a long-term thing to be worried about, I feel like that would be portrayed. And it wasn't. And even like I said, with that practice that the Storm had before the Phoenix game, I talked to Coach. I was like, "How's Nneka? How's she doing?" She's like, "Oh, she's good." So I'm not worried about it. And early into the season, like you can kind of, I'm okay with you giving a vet like Nneka that be like, "Hey, we're gonna need you long haul. Just sit for tonight." So there's that. But yeah, what we've talked about, mostly a positive week in terms of player of the week. And looking at her numbers, I mean, it can be better. I'm sure we've seen Jewel Lloyd play uh, uh, to a better level, and obviously with her historic year last year. But I went with Jewel over these past 3 games, just given the scoring input. 25 the past 2 nights, 15 against Phoenix, which Phoenix 15 is fine, but you look at the other numbers because scoring isn't everything in totality. You look at 7 rebounds, at least 7 rebounds in all 3 games, which the rebounding game's been big for her. She's averaging, I believe, two and 2/3 assists per game, getting the steals in there. And like you mentioned in our post game reaction from the loss to Minnie, getting to the free throw line. I mean, she shot 9 free throws against Minnie. She shot 9 against Vegas and made all 9 of them. She only shot 3 against Phoenix, which that Phoenix game had some interesting physical points as well. But just getting the most out of Jewel Lloyd, not having her, have to be this extremely ball dominant player like she was last year with that roster, um, is why I talked about it as well in the post game reaction. Like this team really hasn't hit their full stride, which is funny to think about coming with that 6 game winning streak ending. And part of that is seeing Jewel Lloyd start to play better, start to score the basketball more, start to take some of the shots that are completely wild, whether it's fading away, coming off contact, like seeing that's pretty remarkable. And if we hit the full capabilities of that core four, let alone the rest of the roster, part of it will include Jewel Lloyd averaging 20-25 a game. Maybe more. I don't know. Like it's remarkable to see. And part of it is too seeing her defensively. Like she's not gonna get all the shine for her defensive play, especially because of her offensive play.
She's getting
Um,
after it, man. She's getting after it.
like so I don't know. That's where I went. Where did you agree or did you have someone else for the past 3 games in terms of your player of the week?
Now, I agree on everything that you said. Um, but as far as impact, I feel like one of the main reasons why the Storm struggled initially start the season wasn't really just because of building chemistry, continuity, things of that nature. It's really just waiting for Skylar Diggins Smith to further her progression as far as getting back to W shape. As far as everyone knows, gain speed shape and practicing in the gym are 2 different things. And she's only played 11 games in the first, she's been out 20 plus months. So I feel like still, I understand she's playing great right now, but there will be games where she needs that type of grace that coach spoke about a couple of weeks ago. And today is one of those days. But coming into this game, the team is on a 16 win streak because of her. They won all these games because of her. The way that she's been playing, not directly because of her contributions as a defender at the point of attack as a point guard. She funnels so many actions into Ezzy and NECA as far as them at the rim. It changes so many different looks for the opposing team, but also for them on defense. I mean, you kind of have a prediction of where the ball's going to go, and that's also helped them in the passing lanes and getting steals, things of that nature. But if you want some stats, it's fine. Over the last 3 games, Skylar entering tonight, that is, of course, she's averaging 18 and a half points, 6.7 assists. But the efficiency is what I'm looking at: 44% from the field, 36% from 3 on nearly 4.5 attempts. This is not the Skylar of old, but this is a Skylar Diggins Smith that we've seen before. The efficiency, the shot making, the defensive intensity. She still has it. She's back. It's still going to take a little bit more time to get her just a little bit more adjusted. But for right now, I know she's not going to be happy with where she's at right now. But everyone else, considering we haven't seen her in 20 plus months and she's playing the way that she is, she's top 3 in assists and top 3 in overall assists. So, yeah, I think she also needs to give herself some grace. And then, the team will be better for it.
Yeah, and I mean, like you've been such a big factor in that and talking about Skylar and making sure that she's getting the attention that she deserves for one, but also making sure that there's that grace as well. And Christian put out a great piece after the Phoenix game about basically detailing how we've gotten to this point with Skylar, with all the stuff that happened in Phoenix and coming to Seattle. So, and I'll put that linked as well. But yeah, just it's always like constant messaging. It's like, hey, like we're seeing her play great, but we're still waiting for another gear, which is very remarkable to think about and seeing again, because I do the point guard matchups, right? It's like seeing her still averaging a good amount of points for a starting point guard, getting into passing lanes in terms of steals and the rebound numbers. It's like again, if this is not 100% of what Skylar Diggins-Smith can be, and it's better than a lot of point guards in this league, it's pretty remarkable again. So that only feeds to my point. I feel like it's like when we see this core four really hitting on all cylinders, like it will be because we really haven't seen that. I don't feel like, with you get a full Skylar, as Coach Quinn has said, the head of the snake here, still fully implementing the Storm system. Like I talked about with assistant coach Ebony Hoffman, she had 100. There's 100 different terms that the point guards have to learn for this Storm team. Like there's that. There's it's very remarkable, and I want to highlight Christian for that, for always making, not only bringing up when she's got these great moments and showcasing where she's impacting the game, but also making us remember it's remarkable to see that, considering what she's been up to and how life has treated her, for better or for worse, over the last few years and a solid amount of months. So
Like, man, I'm sorry. She had 2 children. She had her second child. Listen, she went on maternity leave before it was a thing in 2019. Went on maternity leave after. First of all, everyone had questions about, nominating other people for WNBA president. I don't know if you know this now, but Skylar wouldn't have been able to take maternity leave without that being in the CBA 2020. And who was the president then and still president? Becca Gumke. So, yes, that plays into it. But, yeah, listen, some of the rhetoric, some of the messaging that I have seen surrounding Skylar Diggins-Smith's name start this season made my stomach turn. It's trying to find the words to be respectful. I love how people want to add context when it suits them, but don't actually want to follow through with that context and add it to their reasoning. Like coach has said numerous times, she's not going to be perfect back to her normal self within a handful of games, And for so many people to just expect that, to just flip a switch and become a perennial all-star athlete overnight, that's not how that works, And even I feel like she's been playing well lately and the team is better because of it. I've heard more negativity about Skylar Diggins-Smith to start the season than I have positivity. And I understand I cover the team. I write about them all the time. But we're only a team of two, a team of three now with Rowan. So we need others to pick up the slack, Talk about her in her moments of greatness. It's not just her moments of, not goodness.
and maybe not, I don't know how to put it, but like we go from, the moments of maybe not the best to looking at where this team could get better. We talked about it already a bit in our post-game reaction from this Minnesota game. Things, Seattle, could be better in some ways for sure, but just didn't necessarily get maybe what the game should have given them. You look at the Phoenix game, you largely handle things, except for that kind of lull in the second half where the offense kind of shuts off. The defense is able to hold Phoenix to such a low point to where it doesn't really matter. And then that Aces game is probably is just about as happy as you can be with that game. Where do you want this team to get better from this past week, Christian? Is it, respond? You talked about it in that post game reaction. Is it responding to kind of when a team has a strong run? Is it, you talked about finding these better shots and not necessarily having to rush into things. Where do you want to see from this past 3 games, this team improve heading into a week where, you've got another stretch of 1 home game and then two road games?
There's one thing I think this team needs to improve on. I haven't seen a lot to start the season, but I've seen it a couple times, and I saw it today. When teams don't allow Seattle to get going in the paint early, they kind of play to the other team's speed. They kind of, aren't running their plays. They aren't really, getting the execution really down to the wire as far as a lot of these shot clock positions we've seen. I mean, I think today, out of all the possessions that I've seen, I think I saw maybe 50% of them ran all the way through. Now, that's not necessarily anything on Seattle, so to speak. That is also giving credit to Minnesota's defensive intensity, specifically on the ball, at least. The teacher Heidemann, Courtney Williams, these players coming in. Olivia Pupa for Minnesota. She was on Jewel heavy in that second half, but not letting teams dictate your flow of the offense. I've seen it a couple times throughout the season, not a lot, but the times that I have seen it, it has resulted in defeats, so to speak. So yeah, other than that, that's really the only main concern that I have. That and starting slow, not getting your game going in the offense. Like we all know, this team is best when they're playing inside out, and when teams don't allow them to, they kind of rush the shots. But other than that, yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
And then you go into a week where kind of a similar structure to last week. You got a game on Tuesday, Thursday, and then Sunday. You play the Sparks, which the Sparks, they don't have too much positive going for them. It'll be fun to watch some of the younger players that LA has, and Rakia Jackson and Cameron Brink there. Diarca Hamby's having a solid year, numbers wise, after what's happened in Vegas, which how that situation went about. Um, not like you and I have talked about. I don't know if we need to spend much time on that. I'm not super worried about the Sparks. That's a situation where you go in, you handle business, you get another Commissioner's Cup win, you move forward.
I will say
Um,
one thing though.
mm,
Diarca Hamby is one of three W players right now who is top five in points and rebounds. She is cooking, man. I have never seen her play this well in my life. I actually take that back. Take that back. She was playing really well for the Demon Deacons.
mm,
So yeah, I'm not. I would say I'm not surprised, but the way that she's going about it this season, the efficiency,
mm.
the shots within the frame of the offense. I mean, it's looking like her team. And to be honest, I can't say it's not. I mean, she's leading them in points, she's leading them in rebounds. She's overall their best, their most complete player.
No, absolutely. Credit where credit is due, and that's something, hey, I mean, that'll be something to watch as well when we get to Tuesday at Climate Pledge Arena. Then you've got Thursday, June 13th at the Wings, 4 o'clock start in the afternoon on ESPN. That's interesting. Dallas has been trouble for the Storm in the past. The record doesn't tell the full story with them, I don't feel like. Um, what have you seen quickly from Dallas, and what trouble they might give this Storm team on a Thursday afternoon?
So I think out of all the teams that Seattle has faced already, I do think Dallas will probably be the most challenging simply for the fact that they are the biggest team in the league. But as a former Dallas beat reporter, I came to Seattle covering the Storm now. I will say this: that team does not use their post. They don't run Kalani Brown, a 6'7" center, and Tierra McCowan, a 6'7" center, together at all. Their rotations are pretty shoddy, respectfully. The guard play is pretty weak, at least this season. So I wasn't really a fan of a lot of the moves they made. I'm not really sure that Seattle will have a hard time with them, but I think the most difficult part of that game will definitely be in the post. Again, 2 6 7 centers, but the fact that the coach doesn't play them together when situations dictated for most matchups, I don't think that's a cause for concern for Seattle. One of the ways I am looking at for them to make their impact on that game, Skylar Diggins Smith, Joe Lloyd. We haven't really seen too many games this season from both of them cooking. Like you said earlier, we haven't really seen a complete core four game. And the games that we have seen, where it's like, okay, they're getting it together. Either Neck was out those first two games. Was it 2 games or was it 3? I can't remember. But those 2 games, and then the I game when they beat the Aces. You know, I would have loved to see what that game looked like with NECA playing. But it just feels like the games where they play their best, one player isn't, performing top notch or someone's out. So yeah, I'm really waiting for that game where everyone comes together. And not gonna lie to you, man, I think after the way that Minnesota game went, coach said it. The two quiet people in the organization, two quiet people in the organization got texts, and Hurt and Ezzy. I think that really woke them up, and you can see during the game at least that intensity, that fire, that running, that drive to win was there. Like I said earlier, also that's what you want to see. That's what you're supposed to see from a championship contender. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
And then, not too much, I guess, to say about Phoenix to wrap it up on Sunday at noon on ABC. But whenever you're dealing with Brittany Griner, I remember, I think it was 2021 up in Everett, I saw Seattle's playoff hopes, not hopes, but playoff run stopped by a Phoenix team, largely because they couldn't handle BG. That's a few years ago. That's, no here, no there. But, I imagine it'll look a little bit different, with Brittany Griner back in the lineup. But, if Seattle plays to the best of their ability and is really able to lock things down, I don't think this should be too much of a surprising contest. But, you know, you're any.
Honestly, I mean, even with BG, I think it's gonna take a little bit of time for them to kind of all come together because they haven't played with her all season. Really, I think she played a game or two, if that. So yeah, they're gonna take time. Just kind of like with Washington over on the East Coast, 0-12 now, and it's like, man, they could be 6-6 if they just had a couple games of Slim. She hasn't played since the second game of the season, so yeah, it's just these absences for certain teams aren't really helping. But I felt like during a couple of those games where Phoenix didn't have BG, it was like, okay, they kind of got something here. Then a couple games go by, and it's like they have nothing here. But overall, they're a good team. They just have a lot to work out. I mean, you bring in so many different players. You bring in Beck Allen, you bring in Tosh Cloud, you bring in Clea Copper. Like those are real pieces that you have to, gel together. I feel like it's a little bit harder than Seattle for the simple fact that these are veteran proven players as far as Scott Smith and Nakagumike. They've been there, they've done that, and I don't think we've seen Beck Allen and excuse me, we haven't seen Beck Allen, we haven't seen Tasha Cloud really perform on that kind of level for a championship contender. I mean, we've seen it, so to speak, earlier when 2019 when Washington won, but that was 5 years ago. Different league, different players. But as far as the fit for Phoenix, I'm really worried about that game. I am worried about BG's coming back. That does give Phoenix a lot of different looks on offense, especially in half-court sets. With Ezzy and Eka Gardner, I'm really interested to see how that's going to go. Whether they kind of double team off help or rather just run, woman to woman defense. Very interesting to see how that goes. But other than that, I think it's gonna be a great game. It's gonna be one of those games that we probably needed from Seattle. One of those wake up games. I forget like Minnesota. So can't wait to see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like you talked about in our post game reaction, whether it be different. Well, I think that ties into it exactly what we talked about. Looking at Minnesota early in the season, and even it's different, but seeing Phoenix a week away, like they look different just because of the roster. So different durations, they provide different challenges. Different scenario, but there's some similarities there. So that'll wrap us up. We'll continue throughout this week's episode of CSS on Converge. But like I said at the beginning, great to have Christian on to contribute to this. And, always great to talk about that and continue to provide a diversity of coverage, whether it be written stuff that he'll do or the video stuff that we'll do for our Seattle Storm.
Like Neka said, shout out to all the Stormies.
God damn it. From there, after hearing myself and Christian, we move over into the team-related notes section of the Storm segment. June 3rd, the team announced officially, that they had signed forward Jordan Holmes to a rest of the season contract. As per team policy, terms of that deal were not disclosed. Holmes rejoins the Storm after spending the preseason with the team, tallying 17 points in 35 minutes played throughout the course of the team's 2 preseason games. She scored 13 points on 6 of 9 shooting, while adding 4 steals and a pair of assists in 20 minutes against the Sparks up in the WNBA Canada game in Edmonton. Holmes enters her 5th season in the WNBA. She averaged 3.2 points and 2.3 rebounds per game in 29 games with the Storm last year after she signed with the team as a free agent in June. She was originally drafted by the Storm in 2020 as the 19th overall pick and has played across 4 different teams during her WNBA career. This move comes after the Storm waived forward Dulcie Fancom-Mengiadu. Wishing the best of luck to Dulcie as well. Dulcie was someone that, I've been really high on since the Storm drafted her. Very good rebounder, kind of raw game offensively, working on that. She was viewed as too small to be a post player in this league coming out of the draft out of USF, University of Southern Florida. Made the Storm roster that year after many thought she'd be cut. I thought she'd make it. She made this year's initial roster, but now cut, obviously, and Joyner Holmes is with the team. June 4th, the team signed forward/center Ezzy Magbegor to a 1-year extension. The Storm announced that WNBA champion and two-time WNBA All-Defensive Team selection Ezzy Magbegor signed a 1-year contract extension. Per the team policy, deals were not disclosed, but it is a 1-year extension. Magbegor is off to another exceptional start to the 2024 season. At the time of the extension, she led the league in blocks with 24 and blocks per game with 3, and has recorded at least 2 blocks in each game thus far. Magbegor has also scored in double figures in 7 of 8 games that year, averaging 13.6 points per game and adding 8.6 rebounds per game. In the year of 2023, a big year for Ezzy. She was named to the All-Defensive Team for a second straight season, ranking second in the league in blocks with 1.9, 10th in rebounds and 8.1. She finished the season with a franchise record 322 rebounds, and her 74 blocks were the second highest in team history. Magbegor was selected to her first All-Star game in 2023, posting career best averages of 13.8 points, 2.6 assists, 1.1 steals, while her field goal percentage of 51.3 ranked 9th in the WNBA on the season. Ezzy turns 25 in August, has already played 133 games in the league, and won a championship with the Storm in her first year back in 2020. Over her last 2 seasons, Magbegor has seen her stock rise, averaging 11.9 points, 6.9 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks per game, while connecting on 52.6% from the field overall. During the 2023 season, continuing to add to an impressive year that we've talked about already, she became just the 14th player to score 1,000 points, 650 rebounds with the Storm, becoming the 3rd youngest in franchise history to reach that mark. Outside of Storm play and looking internationally, Magbegor has represented Australia at the 2024 Olympic qualifying tournament in Brazil, averaging 12.7 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game. Ezzy earned tournament most valuable player honors and led the Opals to an undefeated record in qualification to the 2024 Paris Olympics. Magbegor has helped Australia win a bronze medal at the 2022 FIBA World Cup and silver in the 2018 World Cup. Also in international stuff, during the WNBA offseason this past year, Magbegor dominated EuroLeague competition with ZVVZ USK Praha in the Czech Republic, leading the competition with 2.4 blocks per game, 3rd in rebounds at 8.2 points per game, and 10th in scoring at 13.2 points per game. Something fun, too, with Ezzy signing her extension. I was at shoot-around when the morning of finding out about this. And it was after shoot around, the Storm had this huddle to close things out, and Ezzy's a quiet person, but she announced to the team that she had signed that extension and got a big cheer from her teammates and coaches, so that was fun to see. Looking ahead, the Storm would sit at a 7-win, 4-loss record overall. That's good for 4th in the WNBA overall, 2nd in the Western Conference, behind Minnesota, who they lost to on Sunday. Looking ahead, another 3-game stretch for the Storm this week, another instance where they play 1 game at home and 2 games on the road. June 11th versus the Sparks is the first game of the week at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock tip-off time. That's a Fox 13 Plus game. You can also watch it on Amazon Prime Video. This is game 4 of Commissioner's Cup play, 4 of 5. Then on Thursday, June 13th at the Wings is a 4 o'clock start. This game will be broadcast on ESPN as well as NBA TV Canada. This is game 5 of 5 of Commissioner's Cup play. And then June 16th on Sunday to close out the week is a road game against the Mercury. This is not Commissioner's Cup play. At noon, it is on ABC.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, where are you going to watch the Seattle Storm away games this year?
Away games. Well, Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, so I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. See you all here.
Moving over into the Sounders segment of the show. I mean, we've talked about it before. You know, it feels like the Sounders had been building some positive momentum over the past month or the past few weeks or so, and then they, will have a really frustrating result like this past week in Kansas City. So we'll look at it. June 8th at Sporting Kansas City, a 2-1 loss. Our player of the match, it could have gone with a few different players here on FootMob, but Christian Roldan was rated the highest with a 7.6 match rating. Jordan Morris scored the goal, but I went with João Paulo, just given sort of the number of the stats that he was able to record. João Paulo, a 7.1 match rating and 81 minutes played, 1 assist, a 90% passing percentage, 1 chance created on the night, and 11 passes into the final third, so really helping get the ball moving there. This one was a tough one. I mean, the Sounders scored first, Jordan Morris scored first, but unfortunately, Kansas City was able to respond to this one. You go into half, tied at 1-1. The Sounders had looked like the better club, just a mistake to give up the goal, and then late into this one against Kansas City, it was really just kind of a nothing ball that Sporting put on goal, and Stefan Frey just kind of has a slip up, doesn't make a save that you really expect him to make, and the Sounders drop this one. I wouldn't blame it completely on Steph. Yes, you've got to make the save, but also you really should have scored a second one as well as a response goal. And the first time was a bad sequence in general, so just frustrating. The frustrations continue, obviously, for the Sounders here, and Sporting, who had struggled coming into this match, get relief. So really ugly one there. Looking at the pre-match injury report, 4 players out for the Sounders, and some stuff that we'll look at injury-related wise. Defender Jonathan Bell remains out with a hamstring injury. Stu Hawkins, was one of 2 players out with international duty. We'll talk about that a little bit in the team notes related section. Defender Nathan continues to be out with a quad injury. Defender Nuhu was also out with international duty. Midfielder Pedro de la Vega was questionable with the hamstring injury. I don't believe he traveled. And then forward Bradilio Rodriguez, questionable also with that hamstring injury. So kind of nice to see Bradilio questionable after he had been just completely out for the Sounders for quite a long time. But we'll look at it a little bit further with those 2 injury notes before we get further into the internationals. So on the 4th, Leo Chu was a full participant in training, and he was eligible for selection. He last played on May 15th, which was, I believe, 3 weeks ago at the time, when he had come out with an adductor injury. He would believe to be out 3 to 4 weeks. So it's nice to see Leo Chu back. And then Pedro de la Vega. There's all these questions about Pedro de la Vega. They've been questioned since he's been signed effectively. And it's very seemingly touch and go right now with him. He last played on May 18th. That had marked his return from absence. He had been absent at that point 11 weeks after suffering 2 separate hamstring injuries. He wasn't taken on the trip to St. Louis. He didn't play at home a few days later against Real Salt Lake. He's day-to-day, supposedly. That's what he was called on the 4th. It had been insisted by head coach Brian Smetcher that he didn't suffer a setback, and it's more discomfort that the Sounders are trying not to force upon him, and they're reluctant to push him through it. They're trying to get him up to speed. Here's a quote from Schmetzer. We're trying to get him up to speed, and it hasn't happened. I'm trying to help as much as I can, but I'm not going to push the kid. If it was a playoff situation or something, I might push a little harder, but it is a long-term investment. I'm just not going to push him. Things change, and if there's any serious setbacks, I'll let you guys know. Right now, I'm taking it very cautiously. So they continue to take it cautiously, and that's something that, it's smart to do, just given the injuries that he suffered. You don't want to just keep getting him injured again and again and again as you bring him back. But obviously it's frustrating considering the results that the Sounders have had and considering that he's your big signing from this offseason. But really at this point, there's not much that you can do outside of just, I think, being smart, playing it safe, and making sure he's able to come back fully at the pace that's best for him. I mean, again, it's a big investment with that reported $7 million transfer fee. and you want to make sure you don't break the guy before you're really able to see what he can fully do. So we'll move over into team-related notes. On June 4th, 2 Sounders FC players were called on international duty. Defenders Nuhu and Stu Hawkins joining their respective national teams for the June window. Nuhu joins Cameroon for a pair of 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers, while Stu Hawkins joins the U19 United States men's youth national team for a camp and friendlies in South America. Additionally, Tacoma Defiance forward Jose de Rosario had also been called up to the Guyana national team for a pair of World Cup qualifiers. So I'll touch on it quickly. There's not a lot to take from this Sounders game outside of just continued frustration and, more and more my idea and thought process with this team that, they really aren't going to be much outside of a fringe playoff team. Potentially, is solidified. Like, that's their ceiling. They're a fringe playoff team, unfortunately. Like, unless they go on some insanity run, that's the best for the Sounders club this year. And realistically, some wholesale changes are probably needed if you want to get back to taking the next step, and you'll have to get innovative, whether that's in the off season or trying to do stuff during the summer window. So that's just how it is. The Sounders sit at a 4-win, 7-loss, 6-draw record. They are 18 points in the standings. That's good for 20th overall in the league and 10th in the Western Conference, just outside of a playoff spot. Their next match is at home, June 15th versus Minnesota United FC with a 7:30 p.m. kickoff at Lumen Field. This is the 50th anniversary celebration for the Sounders. Obviously, there's a lot of fanfare around the 50th anniversary celebration this year for the club, but this is the big 50th anniversary celebration. Get the details here for you as we find out the broadcast details. This is on Apple TV MLS Season Pass. There's a few different things here. There's the Sammy the Sounder throwback bobblehead that we talked about previously. A few different local bands will be performing. Lovely Colors, All Night Entertainment, E. Pruitt, and Arami Walker will be playing hits from the past 50 years. That Sammy the Sounder bobblehead that I mentioned is a limited supply for the first 10,000 fans. There will be limited edition 50th anniversary retail collection at the Pro Shop featuring a commemorative hoodie, crew, tee, and scarf and limited quantities and will not be made again. So there is that.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey. So where are you going to watch all of the Sounder away games this year?
Away games for the Sounders. Since Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that's a great idea. Go Sounders. Hope we see you all here.
Moving over into our Kraken segment here, there's not a lot, but there's a few things to touch on. And, with the team not really being into much until we get into free agency and the draft, it doesn't hurt to bring you what news that we do have for our men's hockey team here. So in regards to that team-related news, with the Rangers previously being knocked out of the playoffs by the Florida Panthers, we do have the full draft order for the Kraken. In round 1, they'll have the 8th overall selection, as we've talked about. They'll have 2 picks in round 2, the 40th overall selection and the 63rd overall selection. That 63rd overall selection is from the New York Rangers. They'll have 2 third-round selections in there, the 73rd overall pick and the 88th overall pick. That 88th overall pick is from the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then 1 in round 4 at the 105th overall pick, 1 in the 6th round of the 169th overall pick, and then 2 in the 7th round, 201st overall, and then 202nd overall. That 202 pick is from the Calgary Flames. We go over here June 5th, in a report from David Pagnotta. Contract talks between the Kraken and center Matty Beniers, his camp, are underway, albeit in the very early stages. Negotiations are expected to pick up in the next week after the NFL Draft Combine. He's coming off of his entry-level contract, of course. All options, long-term versus short-term, remain on the table. As our friends over at Emerald City Hockey have talked about, it's likely that the Kraken are going to want to sign Beniers to a sort of bridge deal. They haven't seen a lot from him that they've expected. He had the offensive struggles this last year. His defensive game has been relatively solid. That's been a big thing for him. He's a 200-foot center, but with them not seeing too much from the offensive game and wanting to see more from really their first overall draft pick ever, the Kraken are going to want to sign him to a bridge deal.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey. Where are you going to watch all those Kraken away games?
Kraken away games, making a push. I was thinking of coming here just because Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, only if that's okay with you.
I mean, I love that idea. Hope to see you here.
We move over into our rain segment of the show, and like the Sounders, just another disappointing result. With the Sounders, at least there was some positive momentum over the past few weeks. With the rain, it's just been continued pain. I didn't mean to rhyme there, so sorry about that, but we'll get into it. Also in Kansas City, the Seattle teams in Kansas City this past weekend have not been great. The Mariners lost their 3-game series. They only won 1 game of that road series in Kansas City against the Royals. The Sounders lost on the road to Sporting KC, and then the Reign lose on the road to the KC Current by a score of 2-5. Our player of the match for Jordan Huitema, the Canadian, in her return to action with the club, a 9.1 match rating, 2 goals, 4 shots, and 3 chances created. So a really big game from Huitema. Nice to see that. I'm wrong. I believe she came on as a substitute in the last match, so I'll double check that while we're moving here. Damn you, NWSL. Why are you not easier to navigate? Oh, yeah, I can talk about the match in the meantime, though. This was just a frustrating match. The Reign were actually able to get on the board first. They get on the board first with this the nice ball in from Veronica Latsko to Huitema. She's able to get the ball in and get past goalkeeper A.D. Franch. Immediately after, Kansas City is able to answer, which not ideal, especially given how the defensive mistakes for the Reign have been. Huitema gets a second one in the first half, and then right before halftime, the Current get another one to answer once again. So it was like whatever the Reign were doing solidly or doing well, the Current were able to answer, which was just really tough to see and frustrating. The Current are able to pull ahead in the second half and just really distance themselves. Oh, yeah, she did play in the last match against the Spirit. 29 minutes. Yes, okay, I was wrong. So, yes. Substitute against the Spirit and gets that start against Kansas City. 2 goals, 4 shots, 3 shots on target, 21 pass attempts, 58% passing percentage, 38 touches, and 4 tackles made. Yeah, just really frustrating to continue to see the defensive mistakes from a team that, the last few years and really under head coach Laura Harvey since she's been back with the club has been a strong, smart defensive team. Again, defensive numbers-wise, one of the best, if not the best team defensively in the league. And we just really haven't seen that from this year's club. And even, losing the big-name players that the Reign lost were largely off on the offensive end in Megan Rapinoe and Rose Lavelle. Emily Sonnet, playing the role that she did last year was very helpful defensively. But even the year before then, the Reign's defensive play was strong. So, really frustrating and tough there. And we talked about it with the Sounders and them being a fringe playoff team. I think the Reign, this is a down year, unfortunately. And I think playoffs are very much a long shot, and not something that we'll be able to look forward to, which is painful and sad. Tough there, with the rebrand, there was so much light and happiness. It's June 9th. It was June 9th yesterday, and we still don't have any update on the sale of the club. Still rumored to be with that group that the Sounders are involved in. Very tough. I'm sorry. It's just tough. we work really well with the rain. We really enjoy working the rain. We really enjoy covering the rain. So seeing them not be able to get the results, seeing it just be continued tough for them, whether it be the results or not getting the sale put through, very sad, very tough. We'll look at the injury report here. Three players were out. Goalkeeper Claudia Dickey continues to be out with a knee injury. Midfielder Quinn also remains out with a knee injury. And midfielder Nikki Stanton was out with a face injury, listed on the injury report there. So, yes. We go to team-related news here. There's some stuff with the internationals, so we'll talk about that. Jordan Heidema continuing, she had a solid match against the Current. Talking on the 4th of June, on Tuesday, she logged her first international minutes since she had come back from that back injury that had really taken her out of NWSL play and had some Canadian fans worried about her missing time with the Canadian national team. She was a sub for Canada at halftime of a friendly that they played against Mexico in a 1-1 draw. She did not play in Canada's 2-0 win over Mexico 3 days after that. All of those matches, those two matches were part of a send-off series for Canada before the reigning Olympic champions head to Paris to defend their title. Heidema was quoted about going to the Olympics, telling Goal.com, "We have a pretty good track record at the Olympics. I think that's our tournament to shine in. I think we're in a good place and the team is in a good mindset." We move over here to the Wales international players with Jess Fishlock, Angharad, James Turner, and Lily Woodham. Wales had done really well in their first two Euro qualifiers against Kosovo and Croatia. They did play some tougher matches, though, against Ukraine during the window for the internationals the past time. Angharad James Turner wore the captain's armband in the first matchup, previously captaining the side last July in a friendly against the U.S. women's national team. Just Fishlock and Lily Woodham also started in the match, fighting to a draw 1-1 after the Wales just gave up a goal against Ukraine that was just an early defensive mistake. Sound familiar? They played Ukraine 4 days later, and Just Fishlock had a goal in that one. The Wales went on to win that game in which Just Fishlock scored by a result of 2-1 after they led for most of the second half. Gave up an equalizer in the 7th minute of second stoppage time to split points and fall to second in the group behind Croatia. Ukraine only had 3 shots on target across both games and did score on all of them, which is just not fun. The Wales international team are still in position to grab the top spot in the group as they look ahead to the final 2 group stages, which are next month in July. A few other things here with Emery Adames. The U20 youth national team and Adames played a brilliant game as they battled South Korea, in a pair of friendlies as they created several chances for herself and her teammates. She did get an assist and did have a goal. She started in the second friendly, which South Korea won, though, 4-2. Speaking of South Korea and the Korea Republic, Ji So-yeon reunited with her longtime Chelsea head coach and friend Emma Hayes as Korea Republic played a pair of friendlies against her former coach in Hayes, which was her debut as the U.S. women's national team head coach. Ji captained the Korea Republic side in their first match, where they struggled offensively, lost by a score of 4-0. Korea had some better chances in the second game, including a quality classic G free kick, which forced a big save by Casey Murphy, but they couldn't break through and were shut out again by a score of 3-0. So there is that sort of wrap up over the past week for the for the internationals. The Reign sit at a 2-win, 9-loss, 1-draw record, just 7 standing points, and second to last in the NWSL table. They'll have a week to get back into it before their next match as they return home, thankfully, June 16th versus the Portland Thorns with a 1 o'clock start. This match will be broadcast on CBS and Paramount+. But, of course, with the home matches, I encourage you to come out to Lumen Field to watch these and support the Reign in person. I promise you, the vibes are always good at Lumen Field for the Reign matches. And if you really want to support women's sports, there's just such a big boom in women's sports. over the past few years, that means going and buying tickets, buying merchandise. While we do have the Storm and we love Storm coverage, obviously, and supporting the Storm, there are women's sports outside of the Storm in Seattle, and that includes our Reign. It's women's soccer. It is soccer. I know the pro soccer sides in Seattle and the Sounders and the Reign haven't been too great this year, but you got to support your teams, win, lose, or draw.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, where are you going to watch all the away games for Seattle Reign FC this year?
Away games. Well, since Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. See y'all here.
We move over into our Seawolves segment of the show after a week off for them, and obviously the show here. And even though they're dealing with those long-term injuries, the Seawolves get a big result against a rivalry side in the Utah Warriors. So we'll look into it here. June 9th versus the Warriors at home at Starfire Sports Complex. The Seawolves would win by a score of 68-29. The Seawolves jump all over the Utah Warriors. Utah not having the best year this season, which is remarkable because they still coming into this match, and maybe if something crazy happens, could have had the opportunity to be able to pull themselves into one of the playoff spots in MLR. Seattle takes care of business pretty handily. Again, as I mentioned, they're dealing with some injuries long term. It's going to be an adjustment, but they really were able to come out on Pride Night and take care of business. A mauling try for Seattle put the first points on the board. Jade Stigling scored to make it 14-0. The Warriors did get a penalty kick. Jade Stigling crosses the line again for back-to-back tries to make it 21-3. Ina Futi scored to make it 28-3. They got the bonus point for those 4 tries. It's always nice to get the bonus point in MLR. Devon Rousseau crossed the line for a try and put the ball down under the post for an automatic 7, 35-3. Utah got their first try of the night before halftime to make it 35-10. Inafuti scored a second try, making it 42-10. Jade Skilling did get his hat trick of tries right before the half to make it 49-10. So Seattle was up 39-10 by the score of a difference of 39 at the halftime mark, and you're like, well, you're really, they were running away from it from the jump. Seattle was able to get in there. Futi got, I believe it was a hat trick there, but our player of the match, Jake Stealing, 4 tries on the night, and that win actually would help the Seawolves and make them playoff bound. So with that win, the Seawolves do clinch a playoff spot. It's their 5th appearance in the MLR playoffs, and they are guaranteed to play in the semifinals of the MLR playoffs. Also, in a kind of, domino effect with the Utah loss, another rival of Seattle, the San Diego Legion, had clinched their spot in the playoffs as well. So there is that. Big week, by the Seawolves. They come off the break. They did get the win over Old Glory in their past match before this second bye week on the season, but there were 2 more injuries in there. I don't believe we've gotten updates on those 2 injuries since then, but you look at the Seawolves and all the injuries, especially injuries to their captain and their vice captain, as well as a bunch of key contributors, and you think, oh shoot, this might not go too great. Scoring 68 points in a rugby match isn't a small feat. So to do so, handling business against a rival is really nice. Seattle's able to get some of their depth in there, to get some key experience. They lock up their playoff spot, and now they can look ahead to really a big remaining 3 matches in their 16-match schedule. And that includes a matchup against Houston, who is currently sitting atop the Western Conference in MLR. And even you look at points, Houston sits atop with the most points in MLR, and the Seawolves are right behind them with those 50 points. I believe Houston's at 57, yes. So, just looking at it here, the last 3 aren't going to be easy. Only one of those last 3 is at home. They play the SaberCats on the road next week. They play RFC Los Angeles, who, if I remember correctly, has really struggled as one of the newer teams in the league. That's that last match at home. RFC Los Angeles sitting at the bottom of the Western Conference table, 4 wins, 8 draws, and 4 wins, 8 losses, 1 draw on the season so far. But they're not the worst team in MLR, as the Miami Sharks have more losses at 4-9, and Anthem RC are winless, 0-13. So not going to be an easy contest. And then to close out the season on the road, they play a rivalry match against San Diego, who just clinched their playoff spot. They're currently sitting below the Seawolves, just 5 points below them, which is a win and a bonus point from flipping spots. So a rivalry match to close out the season on the road. That's not going to be easy either. So got to close out strong. So I don't know. Happy to get the nice result, but still, I'm sure the players and head coach Alan Clark would say work to be done. So looking ahead, the Seawolves sit at a 10-3 record with 50 standings points, which is good for second overall in Major League Rugby and second in the Western Conference, of course. As I mentioned, their next matchup is on the road against Houston, June 15th at the Houston SaberCats. Is a 4 o'clock start time at the SaberCats Stadium in Houston. It's week 16 of MLR. You can watch this one on Fox Sports 1 and the Rugby Network. We wrap things up with our Seattle Orcas segment of the show, which there wasn't necessarily anything big in terms of the players on the pitch for the Orcas, but the Orcas did host a watch party for India versus Pakistan of the official ICC Men's T20 World Cup. So they held their official fan watch party at the Seattle Center Fisher Pavilion. Really big action. Doors opened at 7 a.m. The action started at 7:30. A lot of stuff that was going on. This is pretty big. We'll put the picture and video on the screen that they posted on their socials. There were Bollywood beats by DJ RDX, the finest Bollywood DJ in the American West Coast. There was savory curried vegetable pasties and pies by Premier Meat Pies. There was masala chai from Jaipur Avenue. Seattle Orcas giveaways, cricket demos, Bollywood dancers, and much more. Looking at a few of the other things here, a lot of folks on Twitter predicted that India would win this one. Just kind of a remarkable turnout. I mean, you look at that there, it's really cool. I remember when we did our first Seattle Orcas episode of CSS on Converge, we got a really positive interaction from folks around the world and cricket fans in Seattle. We'll put it here. The Orcas do have a mascot, which I did not know about. In these tweets from Sheel Majumdar, big crowd at Fisher Pavilion. You can see the just crowded seats there. There were the cricket demos right outside of the viewing, which was really cool to see. I got to learn how to start doing this myself, truthfully, so I can get out there. India won by 6 runs over Pakistan in New York, which was really cool to see. Goodness gracious. If you know about it, USA Cricket had a big win earlier this week as well. India edged Pakistan in a sensational finish, staging a running comeback, and I'm sure just an excellent atmosphere out there at Fisher Pavilion. So wanted to highlight that. Again, it's not like this big team news for the Orcas, but something that was really cool, an event that happened here, and an encouragement to go and follow the Orcas on social media so you can see whenever they have events like this going forward. Wow. Yeah. Big week. Nice to be back in the studio. Nice to see you guys again. I hope it was okay to see me again. It's going to be a big week upcoming. We've got, the Seahawks will begin their mandatory mini camp. The Mariners have a 7-game homestand to begin by the time that this is out. The Stormer, but they've got 3 games this week, one of them at home. The Sounders return home to action. The Rain return home. Not too much for the Kraken, I don't imagine, after they've hired head coach Dan Bilesma. The Seawolves have a big match against Houston on the road, and, the Orcas might host more events. So thank you for tuning in. Please check out the CSS merch page to check out the merch that we've got going on. There is our crossbody bag, which is allowed within the sporting venues. There's all these clear bag rules and smaller bags. It does fit the requirements for arena bags. So, hey, get yourself a CSS crossbody bag. Until we see you next time, take care of yourselves, be well, and do whatever you can to make today a great day. Love ya, and I'll see you soon.
Seahawks.